So when you're Nintendo back in the late 80s, you've just saved the console gaming market with your entertainment system and are making a tremendous amount of dough. Now you think to yourself, where do you go from here? To the handheld market, of course. Nintendo prior to 1989 have always had a presence in the handheld scene with their Game & Watch LCD games, which were a success in themselves as there were plenty of them to go around. But in 1989, Nintendo had the idea of why not have an 8-bit system for consumers to take on the go. And with that, a new kind of power was born. Portable power. It's the Game Boy. Playing games equal to that of what you get at home is something us gamers have always wanted. And that's essentially what we got. The Game Boy was released on July 31st, 1989, as a cartridge-based handheld designed by the same person that pioneered the Game & Watch line, Gunpei Yokoi. It wasn't the first time a handheld used cartridges, that honor goes to the Microvision, but it no doubt popularized it, and now people can play a plethora of different games outside of the house, and don't have to drag all of those self-contained handhelds around anymore. Not to say those aren't fun, but convenience and great software go a long way. The design of this brick-shaped handheld is perhaps one of the more iconic designs Nintendo has, along with the NES controller. Beneath the screen is the standard layout that the Game Boy set up, with the D-pad, A and B buttons, and the start and select buttons curved at about a 40-degree angle. Through the years, this layout would remain pretty much the same. The only thing that changed as far as I can fathom is the look and placement of the speaker. Above the dark blue Nintendo and Game Boy logos, we find the green pea soup dot matrix screen. Yes, you heard me, the original Game Boy does not have a color screen, instead having a greenish black dot matrix screen, to keep the system at a low cost. You think the lack of color would make consumers go for other handheld systems of the time like the Atari Lynx and Sega Game Gear, both of which had a color screen, but the Game Boy sold better than them because of their superb lineup of games, among other faults on the competitor's side. If the hardware specs don't get you in, the software will do it justice. On the bottom of the system is the headphone jack, so you can hear that stereo sound the Game Boy likes to remind you of in the comfort of your ears. On the right side is the volume adjuster and external connector for multiplayer use. Had to trade your Pokemon with wires in those days. And on the left is the AC adapter jack and contrast adjuster for adjusting your dot matrix screen to a lighter or darker contrast for easy viewing. You see, there was no backlit screens for the first few Game Boys. That wouldn't come until the Game Boy Light in Japan or the Game Boy Advance SP everywhere else. So this was your only way to adjust the screen in areas that made the games hard to see and hopefully not cause eye strain. I haven't really experienced eye problems with the Game Boy, but it can't be as bad as the Virtual Boy. Then again, I don't have problems with that either, probably because I wear sunglasses. On the back of the system is the battery compartment that blends right in. The Game Boy takes 4 AA batteries and can last up to 30 plus hours of play. Now that is exceptional even by today's standards, and even back then with colorful competition, it even surpassed them as they could only last merely a couple hours with 6 AA's. You would think by now we would have found a way for our phones to have a battery life like the Game Boys, but alas, a half a day's use is all we can muster. But soon portable chargers will become a thing, so hopefully we won't worry much longer. Now that I've covered this unit from top to bottom, it's time to put one of the many interchangeable cartridges in the slot and turn it on. Notice that the switch, once turned on, sticks a piece of plastic out to make sure the game you play doesn't somehow fall out or be forcibly removed during play. A tip for any hardware developer or just a life lesson in general, always consider protecting your software. For games, the Game Boy has its own library of Game Boy games, and a very impressive library at that. with NES ports like Mega Man and DuckTales to its own exclusive games like the Mario and Wario Land games, Game & Watch Gallery, and the newly created Pokemon series. But we can't forget about the puzzle games with the likes of Yoshi, Dr. Mario, and the killer app Tetris, making this system a household name. Tetris was the packing game for the Game Boy, so you essentially got a Tetris shot when you bought the system. Leave a comment down below if you got my reference. Although lacking a color and backlit screen but having the benefits of a lineup of great software and battery life, the Game Boy is one of the most memorable and important handheld systems ever, as it made carts on handhelds a bigger thing, and it laid the grounds for a whole slew of new, updated versions to come out in later years, until 2005 when Nintendo's focus shifted towards the DS. Sure, this thing may be inferior to today's tech and its competition, but it still stands out and shines like the gem that it is, and it outlasts the competition and imitators by a clear mile. If you find the original Game Boy somewhere in the wild, you should grab it and any software you can find to go along with it, because you don't stop playing because you get old, but you can get old if you don't start playing with portable power. It's the Game Boy. One thing I neglected to point out during this review was the amount of accessories the Game Boy had, and there were plenty to go around from the Game Boy camera to the Handy Boy to keep the system interesting. But one accessory, the Super Game Boy, allowed you to play Game Boy games on a superior console that we'll be talking about on the next episode, when Nintendo decided to have your entertainment upgraded for you to not only play with power, but superpower. If you think I missed anything, please leave a comment. If you like what you see, leave a like. If you think others could get knowledge out of this, share this video. And if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Now if you'll excuse me, nostalgia is calling.